Welcome everybody to Butcherbird Presents. I'm very excited to be coming back to you today. It's been a while since I've hosted the show. Travis Stevens from Butcherbird Studios. We are on episode 28, which is amazing to me. Since June, we've had this kind of progression of show capabilities, the way it looks, the way it feels, the way it sounds, and the exciting people that we get to talk to. This morning, we are talking to none other than Nick Robertson. Hello, Nick.
Hey, how's it going, dude?
Very, very excited to have you here. Nick is the head of audience development for AwesomenessTV. Break that down for me. What does that mean?
What part?
Well, awesomeness. How do you get a TV name like Awesomeness?
Yeah, AwesomenessTV is a global media company that serves up to the Gen Z audience. Gen Z being anyone that's kind of born from like 1995 on, so it's like that kind of 7 to 22-year-old range.
So in like 2050, do they have like Gen A rollover? Do they like do a rollover back? Like would they bump into Gen Z?
Well, I don't know, because it was Generation X, right? And
Right,
then we went
right.
Millennial.
Well, they call it Generation X because they didn't know what the hell to call it.
Yeah.
Right? So they'll just call it X. And then, you know, somebody thought, well, you know, I guess Y comes after X and then Z comes after Y. So
But then Millennials like got slotted in there too.
Slotted
Like they
in there,
broke
too.
from like the naming convention for some reason. So who knows what they're going to call it 50 years from now.
So Gen Z rolls out, and then head of audience development. What does that mean?
So that means that I work with a team of analysts and specialists that look at all of the kind of like data behind the scenes for creative, and what we use that data for is to inform creative to make sure that content is kind of set up to succeed in the best way possible.
I'm so excited to unpack exactly what that means as we kind of start stat geeking it near the end of the show. But at the beginning of the show, you're going to get to sit through essentially an introduction to Nick's world, who he is, where he's come from, and how he got into this amazing position. Before we get too deep into the show, I want to get a couple shout outs. One of them, Butcherbird Presents. Please like us on Facebook, hit us up on Instagram, all that social media stuff. I want to, at the beginning of the show, also, before I forget to do it, give a shout out to Wowza, who gave us this amazing Livecaster box that we're doing our show on today. We play tested it for him. It was like this big kind of Secret Santa gift exchange that we did at the end of the year last year. I'm super excited for it. So a huge thank you to Wowza for doing that. Now into the show. We get our shout outs. So what are you working on now? Like, give me a peek into the daily life of Nick Robertson.
So me and my team work across AwesomenessTV's social and YouTube channels to help define who our audience is and help that audience kind of define what our content strategy is.
What shows are Awesomeness putting up right now?
We have a lot of stuff going on. On the YouTube side, we do daily reports on kind of like the Hollywood and digital media trends and news. You know, if there's some like YouTube drama or Selena Gomez and Justin Bieber are having a falling out, that's where we kind of cover that stuff. And then
Cool.
We do a wide variety of content. We're doing like docu-follow kind of series. We do scripted content, and we do more like YouTube-y, challenge-y, game show, kind of fun stuff like that. So it's kind of like a wide breadth of stuff.
Where are you guys housed out of? Where do you?
We're in Santa Monica.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's heckin' away, because we're in Glendale right now, and it's the other side of the world.
Yeah, and I'm in Echo Park, so it's like a trek for me. But it's worth it. I love working there. We get to work on a lot of cool stuff. And I didn't even finish telling you all the stuff we work on. We also do films. We do premium content for like Hulu and like Go90, all those different distribution partners. We have international distribution. We're kind of like all over the world. Any kind of form of content that you could think of, we're creating it.
So,
It's a lot.
so my head is kind of spinning, because how do you even get hooked up with doing a job like that? Like, I mean, for me, and I'm a little bit more traditionally media oriented, and I understand kind of how the broadcast world works, or independent movies and stuff work. So unpack it for me. You know, you were a young adult going through your young adultness playing in a punk band or doing whatever. Yeah.
I thought that'd be a good idea for a career path, is like play guitar in like a shitty punk band.
Always a good place to start.
It's not.
Always
It's
a
not.
good. Come on. And then you decided to start your adultness. Play that out for me. What is that?
Yeah, so I started off, I used to play a lot of video games. I was a big hardcore like Halo 2 gamer, and that wasn't paying the bills, so I needed to get a job. And I had a friend who got a job as a video game tester, and I was like, how do you do that? And he told me, like, just apply on this website and like they'll hire you. And like a week later I had a job as a video game tester.
Just looking for bugs in a video game.
Yeah, exactly. And like working with developers to kind of just fine tune the game over like the 6 months or
Do you
so.
like get to give like highly technical notes like, bro, this sucks?
No, it's
Make it
more
better?
like the technical side. Like they don't want to hear that from video game testers. They don't want a bunch of like nerds who live in their mom's basement telling them how to make the game. They just want you to tell them like how it's broken, you know.
Oh,
So it's a lot of
gotcha.
that. So I did that for about 6 months, and then the company opened an office in Phoenix, and I moved there and kind of like skipped a few steps and got into management, managing teams of video game testers. Did that for a couple years, and the last video game.
Did you have to like wear a tie and go to an office every day?
No, I wore like, my fashion sense when I worked in video games was the worst. I wore basketball shorts and like shitty t-shirts every day.
Was it straight 90s? I mean, what year were we talking about?
This is 2000s. This is like 2007 or so. So like I was behind. I was very behind. Yeah. I was a video game nerd, dude. Like I was. Yeah. So I did that for a couple years, and then the last game I worked on was UFC 2009. I was a big MMA fan. Still kind of am.
Right.
Not as hardcore as I was back then, and I wanted to get out of the testing world. It's kind of a grueling industry. We're working like 80-hour weeks, sometimes for like 1 to 2 months straight.
Yeah.
And
Not nearly as fun as you might think it would be, right?
No, it becomes a lot. It becomes a job. When you're playing the same video game for like 6 months and you're working on it from 40 to 80 hours a week, like you don't want to play that game, you know?
Yeah.
So it was grueling, and I was ready to get out. And so I left the company, and then their production studio for the UFC games hit me up and offered me a job as a producer on the UFC games, which is kind of like the one thing that would bring me back in.
Right.
So I did that for a few years, worked on the UFC games 2010, UFC Undisputed 3, and then towards the end, I knew I wanted to get out of video games.
Did you get to meet any of the talent? Like, did you get to meet
yeah.
Ronda Rousey and shit?
Yeah, I Ronda Rousey specifically. I had a funny interaction with. I used to go do all like the press stuff. I was kind of the face of the game on the internet in a lot of ways. So I was doing interviews and making like video content for our fans on like YouTube and social media. And so I interviewed a lot of fighters and like hung out with them and played the game. And Ronda Rousey was one of the most intimidating, like...
I would lose my mind.
Oh, yeah.
I would lose my mind.
It was hard to keep it contained. I was just talking to someone yesterday about like how weird it is, like how ingrained in that world I was for a while.
Oh my God.
So it was fun. I got to go to a lot of fights for free.
Did she throw you into an armbar and be like, stop?
No, I was just showing her. I was showing her how to play the game, but like just her presence was so intimidating to me. It was like it kind of blew my mind. I was just like hit the A button. I was super flustered, and I didn't normally get like that. Like normally when I'd like be hanging with other fighters and like showing them the game, like we would just kind of like bro down, and it was like a good time. But like something about her presence, especially at that time, that was kind of when there was like a lot of that like
she
mystique.
was unbelievably badass and unbelievably hot.
No one could figure out how to like fight her, and like I couldn't figure out how to talk to her. And,
oh my God.
Yeah, that was fun. And then so I knew I wanted to get out of video games, but I knew that being in the production and design side of video games is very much like a specific path. So I moved onto our social media marketing team doing community management because I had such a foundation of knowledge for the game and the sport. I was kind of a good authority to speak to the fans about how we were creating things, why we were creating things, and that really opened my mind up to how fans can inform the creative behind something.
So this was at the really, really nascent early stages of social media interaction.
It was,
with companies, right?
And we were still a little bit like, this is when a forum on your website was still an important thing to have, you know? So that was still a component of it. That's so much, like, isn't it so important nowadays?
Right.
But yeah, it was like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram had just kind of came out, which is weird to think about.
Yeah.
So we weren't really doing a lot there. And then, so we just like became we use social media as like an open feedback loop to like let our fans help inform what the game is going to be and feel like they're part of the process. And that was really interesting to me.
Interesting. So you got to kind of be on the ground floor of content creation for a specific audience, hence what you're doing now, and the interaction with the audience at large,
Like a one-to-one interaction, and yeah.
Do you have any wild stories?
Oh, dude, yeah. So there was I had. I manage the forums, and internet forums are just a terrible place. They're not good, and especially back in like 2011. And
it's just toxic.
Yeah, so I had one guy in particular that thought he knew a lot more than things about me, and he was like making YouTube videos like Nick Robertson exposed, and like, and he like tried to like hack me and shit. It was it was very aggressive. And it stressed me out too, because like this guy was like. He wasn't like a good hacker. Like he wasn't like an anonymous level kind of hacker. He was like lowest bottom.
And he was trying to like dox you or something like that, or
yeah, he was trying to like blow me up because he thought I was wrong about profanity filters in a video game. It was such a specific stupid thing, but it became like a stressful part of my life. And I was like, you know what? Video games suck, dude. Video games suck. I don't really enjoy playing them so much anymore, but. Yeah, it kind of ruined it for me.
That's so funny.
So the company THQ was in a tough spot. The writing was kind of on the wall. I knew they were going to be leaving. They sold the UFC license to EA, and someone reached out to me with the opportunity to go to this place, Maker Studios. Then they were making YouTube content and making money off of it, and I was like, wait, you can make money making YouTube videos?
Again, ground floor.
Yeah.
So that was
2012.
That was kind of. Internet content version 2.0 at that point, right? I think we're like hitting into the 2.8, 3.0 version right now.
3.5 maybe. Yeah.
So that was 2.0 where like, it was like whatever that dude with the evolution of dance, and he got like 6 billion hits or however many stupid hits he has. And now Maker is like going, and a lot of people like Maker. There was Maker Big Frame.
Full screen.
Yeah.
Awesomeness, I think, was starting to jump into the game
early,
then too.
Yeah. I remember when they were just starting out running stuff out of the back of a U-Haul truck to like do their little productions and stuff.
Yep, and that's what it was at Maker. Like it was a place where it was just like there was a couple sound stages, and it was like all of these people that had been making content on the internet were like given a resource to make this content even better.
So you roll in not somebody with like physical production know-how, at all, right? You come in with, we want to engage people out there in the ether. There is this nameless, faceless mass of folks. You're making something that I think is ridiculously funny. I want to make sure that you get in front of them, right?
And the show I was working on, at the time, it was the #1 show on YouTube, so it's kind of crazy to jump into like the top thing without any experience at all. So I really hit the ground running. It was a show called =3, and it's basically like Tosh.0, where it's like they're taking internet clips that are going viral and making jokes about them.
Right.
And so I was brought in to help them build a social media presence, but also a web presence where we had a website where people could submit clips for the show. So it was like that, empowering the audience to like drive the creative.
So it was like the content is the creator, is the content, is the creator, and it's like this.
The audience and the creator are like working in conjunction with each other.
Yeah, they're all the same
to
thing.
Create something we all want to see.
So just to kind of give you guys an idea of what this may look like, we have a clip I think queued up. Is there any kind of introduction to what we're about to look at?
It's kind of just like, this is like an early like highlight of like Maker, just like who they were. It was very like personality driven, not so much content driven. Which was kind of like the foundation of Maker. Is like, this is a lot of cool.
So like the way back machine, like 5 years ago, right?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
The way back machine. Let's take a look at this clip.
Special effects, props, set dressing.
Animation director.
An actor.
Executive
I'm
producer.
passionate about anything having to do with new media, online video.
Content.
I'm from Mexico.
Idaho, actually.
I am an artist.
Who am I? I make videos.
Maker. I work at Maker Studios.
I love working here.
I would say I learned everything I know here.
What do you want?
To express myself.
You don't have to wait for someone else to be creative or to be cast in something. You can just create your own project.
Help others. Questing for your
I
dreams.
sing, I write songs.
Constantly creating.
When I grow up,
wait.
What are you passionate about?
Doing what you love to do.
I like to make things that get reactions from people.
Pure energy, pure creativity.
A little hope.
Changing this entertainment industry.
Maker.
My greatest fear is
Failure.
Fish. I went snorkeling one time in Hawaii. Huge mistake.
Is not to be fearless.
buscar ser feliz en la vida.
Maker Studios is born out of the passion of empowering an individual.
I am.
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 Awesome stuff. So this was really the nascent kind of ground floor of the audience is the creator, right? And that model has been shaking the entertainment business to its foundation really ever since, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Because they can't figure it out, right? And I was talking with Nicholas Vineroso, who is over at Jash, and I know you know Nick, the other
Yep.
Nick. And we were talking about really the progression of your generation. You're firmly within like the millennials, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Is really and has been the progression of what new media looks like, right? So walk me through for a minute.
Yeah.
Your own kind of personal discovery of media consumption and how it's matured and changed, and how then as a career, it's a complicated question.
It is,
excuse
it
me.
definitely is.
As your career, you know, it's really moved out of being in mom's basement and into studios like this one that we're in right now that like, you know, have light bills to pay and we need to have money kind of supporting it.
The interesting thing is that it still is in mom's basement too, though. Like, you don't have to be here to do it, which is what makes it so powerful, right? Is that, you know, I think early on with like YouTube specifically, a lot of the stuff that was up there was like cat videos, and like it was almost like a internet version of like America's Funniest Videos, right?
Right.
And then people realized like, wait, I could like make a show in my bedroom and put it out there and see what happens. Or I could just like film my life every day and just throw it out there and see what happens. And people started to like gravitate towards that.
Right.
And they're like, oh, this person's just like me. I want to follow this person and see what they're doing on a day-to-day basis, or like watch their comedy or whatever it is, you know? And so that, I don't think that's changed. You know, there are definitely big companies that are putting a lot of dollars behind making content out there, but there's also people who are killing it and they're still just making videos in their bedroom.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So how does the rubber meet the road? You know, because that's really where you come in, right? So they've realized that there are, you know, there's an army of people out there that are wanting to consume this stuff. What needs to happen then, like for you on a business end, that like we have been making this show for 28 episodes or whatever. Really, your job is to go, beautiful, you have content. How do we get an audience? What does that look like?
So I think early on, it's about just like getting it out there. You know, there's that saying that like, if you want to make something, there's someone who wants to see that probably, right? So getting your stuff out there early on is just the number one thing. Get it out there. Maybe you throw some money behind like trying to boost it a little bit, especially in like the current like social media world. You kind of need to do that a little bit.
Right.
But once you do, all of these platforms, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, they give you data on who's watching this content. And in the case of like a YouTube, you can get really specific about where are they watching this content, where do they come from to get to this content, and like where do they stop watching it as far as like retention, right? Like when do they drop off of your video? So they give you data behind who your audience is, and then you can use that to like kind of hone in on like, okay, now I know males 15 to 22 are the people that are watching my stuff. Right. What other things are they watching, and how can I like make more that's in the world that they want to see? You
It's like the buzzword that has been ruling my life for the past month, analytics.
Yep.
Everybody wants to talk analytics at all times with me. And, you know, they're talking about stuff that we're creating. What are the analytics? What's the data behind? You know, we're literally putting a pitch package together to go out to a company that is their business. They are the data conglomerate. They drive data for, you know, businesses that you don't think that there are analytics for. And, you know, these phones, these things that we carry around with us are constantly spewing information about us, what we do, where we drop out, how fast we scroll, all that stuff, right? And so you take that in,
Yep.
drop it into your little cauldron. I imagine you like a witch hat.
Yeah,
fucking thing.
the cauldron's called Tableau. It's like an advanced like data. We take data from basically every platform and we source it all into this one place where we can manipulate that data to like tell the stories behind all those numbers. You know?
And then what?
And then we work with creatives to make their content better. So it's interesting in that like we're not gonna sit there and like go through someone's script and be like, this isn't funny.
Dude, I just had a fucking epiphany. You are the evil executive now. You're the mwahaha guy.
I mean, the thing is like, there's a fine line between that, right?
Right.
It's like, you can be someone who's stepping on creative and like shoving yourself in there and trying to like really like inform things, or you can use that data to guide the process, right?
Help them
like,
make it better.
I can look at a video on the back end and say, okay, you have a 40-second intro. 20 seconds into that intro, you lose 30% of your
People
audience.
stop caring.
Yeah, cut that down to 20 seconds and let's see what happens. And more often than not, those little tweaks help the creative. So we're not really like telling people what to say or how to say it. We're just telling them when to stop saying it, and that kind of thing.
It's like being at a cocktail party, right? And you're telling it some anecdotal story, and you notice halfway through what you think is a really funny story, somebody has kind of just drifted off in behind you, and they're gone.
Exactly. It's
you're just helping people read the body language of a mass audience.
Yeah, you're reading the audience.
Yeah.
But we have a lot more than just those visual cues that you have in like real life, right? We have a lot of numbers behind that.
Where do you get them?
So we get them, all of the platforms have native analytics, but they also just like generate a bunch of stuff. So you can get access to their APIs and pull all of the data and then manipulate it internally.
Is this somebody that's in mom's basement? Can they do that casually themselves?
I think some people do. I think when you talk about like the individual creator, some of them do that, but that's more of a thing that like big businesses are doing. I think creators, it's more of like an intuitive process for them, because there's like more of an open feedback loop on these platforms. Every platform that you're putting your content on, people can comment and interact with it, right? And so you can have a conversation about why things are or aren't working. So I think on an individual creator level, it's more of that like one-to-one interaction with the audience, whereas like a business is going to look at that and get a lot more scientific because they can put bodies behind digging into that data because it takes a lot of work.
Takes a lot, yeah. Are you guys now using this not to just kind of shape or mold projects that are already existing? Are you using it in the greenlight process at this point?
Oh yeah, definitely.
How?
Yeah. So there's a bunch of different ways. We can look at what has worked for us historically or what hasn't worked for us historically and use that to like fine tune things that we're piloting. But there's also like social listening. Like we can use third-party tools to like reach out into the world and see what people are talking about and what their sentiment behind those things is, and then use that to inform what we're going to do.
So there's this really cool show on Butcher Bird Studios channel that I think AwesomenessTV should pick up about doing digital media creation in this new media world that we're doing. And there's this really cool host who has like a red beard and like some groovy glasses that maybe... No, that's a shameless pitch. Sorry, I was trying really hard though.
You were.
So let's look at what comes next. So we have these shows that are being defined for this audience that is being defined, right? And I feel like all the power of the data is coming in and people are finally starting to like kind of figure out how to build the foundation of where we're standing now in the new media age, right? Where before it was just spewing everywhere. Nobody had any freaking clue whatsoever.
No.
So the clue's coming in.
Yep.
What does the next year look like for AwesomenessTV? Like, what do you guys have in the pipeline right now that's responding to this analytic data?
I think for Awesomeness, the thing that makes us really powerful is that we have a very specific audience, right? We know it's Gen Z. It leans heavily female.
What's Gen Z?
Gen Z is people that are born with iPhones in their hands. They're 7 to 22 years old. They are able to find this content anywhere they want to, right? Like their phone now is their main consumption device, right? And so they're people who feel like they should be part of the process because if you're not listening to them, there's someone else who is. So they're an audience who knows that they have the power to drive creative, and they're an audience who are tastemakers now. You know, like it used to be millennials, now it's Gen Z. The things that these kids are consuming and the things that these kids want to see are the things that people need to be making in order to succeed, because the next 10 years is going to be defined by what these kids want.
Well, for instance, do you have a for instance? That you can let me in on? I don't know, maybe it's like top secret.
I mean, we're working on, it's a lot of top secret stuff. I can't really give away anything that we're working on, but there's a lot of cool projects that we're really excited about.
Cool.
It's all sorts of different things. You know, we're making feature films. We're making premium scripted content for like Hulu. Like there's a lot. It's all over the place.
Well, you know, I mean, one of the things that's super interesting now that, you know, I mean, media, video, visual consumption of stuff has been part of our world for more than a century now, right? And we've been in this constant consumption mode easily since the 90s, right? Mm-hmm. So, you know, going on 25, 30 years of really constant bombardment. And I feel like the kids that are growing up in this age right now are so sophisticated with how media works, the way, you know, people can be manipulated. I see, like, you know, my young niece and nephew tearing their hair out about the way, like, my parents get manipulated by things that are, like, obviously not true. You know, it's like, how can you not know this is fake news? How is, like, fake news even a thing? Obviously it's fake news, you know?
Exactly.
And so they're so sophisticated in their consumption that, like, you can't take it for granted.
No, you can't. They can smell bullshit a mile away,
right?
And they know the power that they have too. And so it's like, it's a super interesting generation to create content for.
It really is. So, what comes next? Then, what are you guys looking for like kind of the far term future?
I think, you know, right now it's just about getting bigger and better. We've defined who our audience is. We're very hyper focused on our audience, which I think it helps. You know, a lot of media companies are like, they have their news division, they have their game division, they have their beauty and fashion. For Awesomeness, everything is all under one umbrella, and so the audience informs creative in all of the different genres. And I think you're going to see a lot of medias become much more hyper focused. Rather than spreading themselves thin, they're going to realize, let's focus on this audience and let's make news for this audience. Let's make beauty and fashion content for this audience.
Right.
But, like, let's allow that data to inform everything. So, for example, you know, before you would, you know, if you're at like a new media company and you wanted to launch a news division, you'd kind of just be throwing stuff at a wall and see what happens. Whereas at Awesomeness, we can use the data from our beauty and fashion stuff to inform our news because we know it's the same audience. So it just gives us a lot more power behind everything that we're doing. And I think you're going to see a lot of people shift towards that hyper focus on a very specific audience and not spreading themselves so thin.
From an artist point of view, which is kind of where I come from, to me this feels like a little bit like the tail wagging the dog. And I think it's like really interesting, you know, if you look at kind of the cyclical nature of the entertainment business, where it was, you know, tech happens and then creatives go wild with it, and then the studios come in and figure out how to make this be the same, where they can monetize it in effective ways.
They let the creatives do the legwork for them.
Yeah, and to the point where that studio model becomes so monstrous that then in the 70s with, like, you know, the Dennis Hopper kind of generation of, like, we're just going to go out with 16 millimeter cameras and do whatever the F we want, you know, and be born free, and, you know, whatever the motorcycle movie that they made, what was that?
Oh my God, I can't think of it. Jack Nicholson.
Yeah, Jack Nicholson, whatever. My brain's not working right now. And into the 70s, where it swung way back into the artist corner, right? And then back into the studio corner, the 80s and 90s, where, like, things were like these big budget, ridiculous things. And then the internet came out, and then you went back into the creator's side. And now I feel like the pendulum is swinging back into the analytic.
I think there's a wall.
We're here.
The pendulum hits a wall where, like, the creators are retaining that control. I think you saw a lot of studios coming in and trying to get involved, but the creators are realizing, like, hey, we don't need these people to do this. You know, we have all the power we need. people, I think, creatively want to do bigger and better things, get into movies, get into TV, because there's budgets behind it. But there's a lot of people who are realizing, like, I don't need to do that to be successful, you know? And so it's this weird transition where, like, the studios, I think, want to be very involved, but aren't grabbing onto it as much as they would want to because there's a lot of resistance from the creative side.
Sure, especially like, I think, I know I've kind of been part of these conversations where you have somebody who thinks they know better, kind of trying to tell you what you should be doing. But if you are the creator and you can go, look, man, my analytics say that, like,
this is my
you
audience.
need to you shut the F up, and I'm good.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
And that's the cool thing is, like, as an individual, you have all that stuff at your fingertips, right? You don't need a team of people who are like, working with Nielsen to like look at the ratings and stuff like that. You have everything at your fingertips.
Yeah.
So if you want to dig into that stuff and use that, like, you have the power to. You don't need anybody else to do it.
That's fun. So for you personally, then what comes next? We've gone from like young adult punk rock wannabe to video game tester to manager, person in that video game world to personality within that video game world, into social media and what all this means, and now defining audience and creating audience. And then what?
I think from here, it's about getting even crazier with the data and like figuring out new ways to look at things. So like one thing, for example, that you can do now is like I can get people in a room watching my content and track their reaction, the like facial tracking technology, and notice like when they're angry at something, when like they're happy, and you can use that like emotional sentiment to inform creative too. So like it's just gonna be about getting even nittier and grittier and crazier with how we use that data to
eyeball tracking about what they're looking on the screen and all that stuff.
All that stuff is coming out now and exists, and I think that stuff is only going to improve and inform things more and more. So like
that's interesting. Do they have that where like your phone, the camera on your phone's watching what your eye's looking at on your phone?
I don't know if they have like something you can put on your phone, but there's definitely like companies that have the technology where they just put a bunch of people in a room, make them watch something, and like can just track each individual's reaction to things and kind of create like an emotional sentiment path, Yeah. And then like that can inform things like, a film, it's like, I want people to be sad at this point. And then they watch it and they're not sad. And it's like, all right, well, how do we make them sad? Like, what did we do wrong,
Yeah.
So I think that for me and the people that I'm working with, we're just going to get even crazier about how we use that data to inform creative and just get much more scientific and nitty gritty and yeah.
Do you have your own kind of creative outlets that you do?
Dungeons and Dragons, I think is my number one creative outlet.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I think, strangely enough, like I think that what I do in audience development has helped inform how I run a Dungeons and Dragons game too.
So you're like a DM master. You love being the DM.
I do. I like playing it, but I like running a game a lot more. I think with my background working in video games and even doing some writing and stuff like that, those are things that were like work for me, and now they become like a hobby again, which is really nice. And it's interactive storytelling. I'm working with the players are the audience, right? But they're also the creatives.
Right.
And so like I'm giving them a foundation to build a story off of, and then I am reacting to how they're reacting. So if they see
how did Dungeons and Dragons come back? This is a complete tangential thing. How did D&D come back into the world? Because I remember like I started playing in the late 70s. I won't give away exactly how old I am, but my brother, who's 5 years older than I am, had kind of introduced me to it. I was still fairly young, but like, so 79 maybe was the first time I started playing. And, we just got brutalized, back then for like being part of the Dean, but now it's like, cool. What did the reflowering of Dungeons and Dragons
I think it comes back to what we've been talking about is like this digital media, like there was people that were, before, like you said, it was like you would hide the fact that you were doing Dungeons and Dragons. Now people make a living playing video games online, right?
Right.
And Dungeons and Dragons is like the old school version of what a video game was before video games existed.
For sure,
right?
Yeah.
So these people are kind of like realizing that this fun thing can be the same thing as their video game streams, right? People probably want to watch this too. And so you have these personalities who already had an audience reveal that this is something that they were doing, and then the people at Wizards, the D&D people, I think they realized this really early on, and they're like, oh, we need to get all over this. Like if you look at their YouTube channel now, they have like 6 different like campaigns that are running online that have, influencers from like the video game world and the nerd culture world cosplaying, and they're getting these personalities that nerds care about and putting them in D&D and using that to push their product, and they're killing it. So
killing it. Yeah, it's so fun. I mean, I know for me personally, I love DMing as well, but I'm kind of a bastard. Like, I love
that brutal, like.
Well, I like for the reactions to be very real, and you get very involved in, like, I have this character that I've been building for like 2 years, and I will kill them.
Oh yeah.
I will kill them. And it becomes a very real emotional reaction from your audience.
Oh, and dude, a couple weeks ago I ran a game, and it's a high level campaign right now. They're level 15 out of 20, so it's like we've been doing this for years now, at least 2 years. And there's this wizard who I thought was just like this unstoppable force, right? He's my favorite character to run a game for. He reacts really well to things. He like freaks out all the time.
Yeah.
And he fucking died. And I didn't expect it to happen. I was running the game, and I was like, oh, and then this guy hits you, and then like I rolled a crit, and I was like, oh no, there's gonna be a lot of damage. And he died, and it broke my heart, and I was the one who killed him.
The whole room was like,
everyone was shocked. It was like afterwards, we were like chatting on Facebook, like, man, I still can't believe that happened. Like, it blew all of our minds, you know?
Like losing a family member.
It was, yeah, it's crazy.
That's awesome. So, listen, I know that you're a busy person. I don't want to take a lot of time here. What do we want to wrap up with? Like, where do we leave this show? And one of the things that I want to touch on is, so there's people that watch this. We don't have a huge audience, but we do have an audience that watches this show, and they look to the people that talk to us. They look to have them help define a path. Right? So what is a path? Like, we have, somebody that's out churning out shows, and they're being consistent. They're doing what they can to, like, put the work in.
Yep.
Where do they go? What do they do?
I think the number one thing is to not be afraid to put your stuff everywhere. Maybe it's not going to make you money, but like, put it on Facebook, put it on YouTube. If you can get it uploaded onto other distribution platforms, put it out there. The more places you put your content, obviously the more people it's potentially going to get in front of, but the more data you have to work with. And I think that's another thing, is like, don't be afraid to use data to inform your creative, Like, it can be used the wrong way, for sure. Right. You see that with like a lot of advertising and that like media manipulation, fake news type of stuff we talk about. But when you look at like what we're doing at Awesomeness, we're using that data to inform creative to make things better for our audience, and show them the things that they want to see. So it's like, don't be afraid. Put it all out there. Look at the numbers. Let that inform you. Dig into it. And like, you got to just be fearless in this digital age.
And then do you attach a personality development on with your content? Like, is it a side-by-side? We have the show, and then we also have this person and they're IG famous or whatever it is. Like, is that important nowadays, or is it just to create the content? Do the content?
I mean, it is and it isn't, right? If you have someone who has an audience already, then their audience is going to want to see them in whatever you're making with them. So like, it helps, but it's not necessary, There's still people who are coming out right out of the gate and creating good content, and as long as you can get that in front of an audience, whether that costs a little bit of advertising dollars on Facebook to boost your stuff, like, there is a method for getting your stuff in front of people. And it's not, I think a lot of people thought for a minute that it was like, all these people who are famous on YouTube, that's like the plateau, and now how am I going to break into it? But there's still people who are rising like meteorically from like, a couple thousand subs to like hundreds of thousands, if not millions, within like a year. So like, it's still the Wild West. It's still a place that you can be wildly successful early on, quickly, but you just have to be fearless.
Yeah. Is there any common denominator? Do you know?
Listening to the audience, creating that, like, making it feel like a community, I think is a huge part of it. Not just like throwing things into the ether, but like, all of these platforms have comment sections.
Right.
Look at what people are saying. Talk to them. Make them feel like they're part of the process.
Right.
Because the more you make someone feel involved, the more they're going to want to come back and see what that involvement results in.
Speaking of, I know one of the things that we have up is like a comment board on our thing, just kind of looking out there. Is there any stuff out there on the dark side? Is there any stuff out there that people are kind of questioning or want to talk about? Interactive with us at this point?
Well, you can see that on this fantastic screen we got over here.
So listen, as we continue to develop Butcherbird Presents, for those of you that are still out there in our audience, one of the things that we do have up now is our kind of our comment session within the video. We, Nick and I, can both see this in real time. It can be up on the screen, and if you guys have any questions at all, it's almost like a live Ask Me Anything, you know, with the people that we're talking with. So listen, if you haven't liked us on Facebook, please do. Please interact with us. You know, we'll keep doing this. We'll keep having interesting conversations with people like Nick Robertson here. I don't see any kind of questions coming up. Nick, do you have any, how do people find you? How do people find you out in the world?
So I like to pretend that I am the _1 male beauty blogger in the universe.
I don't see that as pretending.
So you can follow me at Beauty by Nick on Twitter or Beauty_by_Nick on Instagram. Someone stole my brand before I had a chance to snag it up. Yeah, so follow me there. I make all sorts of weird content on my own, kind of more like personal, goofy stuff, but like, I think it's pretty funny. So
food. There's food.
A lot of food too. I like food a lot. Yeah.
So Beauty by Nick. I am Trav the Butcher. We are Butcherbird Studios. So find us on Instagram, find us on Facebook, and look for us out there in the world to continue doing the stuff that we got going. One more shout out. I did it at the top of the show, again at the bottom of the show, because it has worked wonderfully. Wowza hit us up with their Wowza box, this orange, beautiful technological marvel that keeps us going live streaming, and we love it. We've been really happy with the performance of this particular box. So if you guys are looking to do shows like this out of your basement, look to make the investment. If you're looking to do it professionally, look to make the investment, because we found it worthwhile. Yeah, that's all I got for today. So wrapping up, thank you for joining Butcherbird Presents, episode 28 with Nick Robertson from AwesomenessTV, and we look forward to seeing you again in the future. Thanks.